when we do things here at Drum Channel, hey, Terry, we really do them right, huh? Oh, boy.
This is the part.
This is it. We wanted to put a group of percussionists together and see what it'd like to do a jam. You're going to learn about them and their history. They are the pinnacle of percussionists in LA and in the world. Going to start out with a thank you for coming very much, Wafe Culbreath. Just to give you people a little bit of a clue of the history of some of these people, and you'll have to Google them to find out the whole list of everything that they've done, but played on hundreds of soundtracks, easily over 400 soundtracks, Frozen, Godzilla, Transformers, the list goes on and on. He was the principal percussionist, right, at the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra.
Yes.
Did you know Brian Miller by chance?
Yeah.
Brian was a student of mine when he was a young teenager.
Wow. I know he uses DW drums forever.
So that was even, he was a student of mine even before I was dreaming about that. We have also Brian Kilgore. Mm-hmm. Brian, thank you so much for joining us also.
My pleasure.
What a diverse percussion reputation you have, from soup to nuts to African percussion to ethnic percussion. Also played on hundreds of film scores. You haven't seen a movie without these gentlemen in it. Period, I would say, and certainly not in the last 40 years, and hundreds of albums too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think if we take a look at a diverse group of musicians you could play with, I believe Herbie Hancock was on the list, mm-hmm. and L.A. Phil is on the list, and everything else in the world has got to be somewhere between Herbie Hancock and the L.A. Phil, I would think. Dan Greco is with us. This was interesting when I did a quick little Google here to see where we were at with some of the unbelievable amount of people that you performed with, going back to Manhattan Transfer, one of my favorite bands, which were in the early 90s there, I believe.
Yes.
And when you do it, when you Google somebody, you see this horrendous list, and I'm just like, this is unbelievable. And then it says more. So you click on it, and then it goes like to 100 you want? Okay, I want to see 100. Now this is really, and then it's like, do you want 250? And I'm like, every year, you're used to bands where they like be hot in the 80s and nothing happens for like 20 years, Every single year up until this year, with Danny Elfman, some things, as you have done through your history. So these are the guys, and when you watch them play, we're going to talk a lot about what I want you to watch when they are playing. Alex Acuña, we know Alex around here very well. And of course, my partner in crime here.
Buddy Love, Terry
Bozzio. Terry, I've got a bunch of questions, but I'll pass it over to you here. How did you get this idea of putting this piece together, and what does it feel like to have the best percussionists in the world joining you?
Well, to begin with, it's not my fault. It's Alex. No, Alex, we've been playing. I feel like you're my brother. If I could raise myself up to your level in my mind.
They're my brothers over here.
Oh man, we love playing, and we don't talk. We just play, and we could talk about it after, But it's a spiritual thing, and it's a beautiful thing, and it just comes through, right?
Yes,
and so we wanted to share that. And you mentioned that you knew these three guys who were the top, killer movie guys, and who could read anything and do anything, But you said they can also play. They're really heavy players, and so I thought, well, man, this could be the beginning of the Drum Channel percussion ensemble, So that's how I, found out about it. It was all you're doing. You've been doing a lot of movie scores. Yeah.
You guys play together a lot. You run into each other a lot, I would assume. All the time.
Yeah, it goes back many years. I first started working sessions early 90s, which is relatively new compared to Dan. But I remember working with Dan in the early 90s for Danny Elfman, and I think that's the first time I worked with him. It was A Nightmare Before Christmas. That goes pretty far back. But the thing that struck me about Dan when I first started working with him was how relaxed he always is in the studio. Like nothing ever gets to him. He's always very cool and calm.
Here's that money.
But that's actually an important asset to have when you're working under pressure, is to have people around you like that. It makes everything feel better.
A very important lesson for kids out there, I think, to understand that too. Personalities, as I've gotten to know many of the greatest drummers, fortunately, through my lifetime, both as a player and a manufacturer, ones who are in the studios have like a a very relaxed, a very confident attitude about what they're doing. But that confidence, I've also learned, and we're trying to impart on all of the young drummers out there, comes from being prepared. So if you're not prepared, you would be naturally nervous, I think.
Well, it's important to have that in your personality when you're working under pressure. Even when you don't feel like you have everything together, it's important to keep your cool, because there's a lot of things that have to happen in a very short amount of time when you're working under pressure like that.
Well, and that's what allows you to get a tough part done when you know you need to stay calm and figure out how to relax and play.
So we lean on each other, you know.
Absolutely.
We're supportive. It's a very supportive atmosphere when we work together.
How, when you
That's
go
very
into a
true.
studio session, pass it off to you, Don. How, when we performed here and Terry put his piece up, they went through it, what we called a rehearsal, but we were running the cameras and it was like take 44. I mean, it was like everybody played things that were quite complicated perfectly. When you're in a studio situation for a movie date, how many takes do you do? Or will they do it one way and then say, try it a little? How much room do you have to improvise, not literally, but to change a part? And how many takes do you normally do in a situation like that?
Oh, I think it depends on the composer and his security with himself. And then if they give you some room, you can start to change stuff. I've had, one guy told me, I went in to listen to the playback and he said, I don't know what you did. It's like what I wrote, only it's better. But that's kind of what our job is. We're there to know percussion better than they do, and we're adjusting things, you know, that make it sound more musical and work with the picture or the song better, you know, whatever that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can read the music and play exactly what's on the page, but like Dan's saying, our job is to look at what's on the page and think about what the intent of the composer is. What's the sound? What's the effect they're going for? And a lot of times we have a better way than what's exactly on the page. So we'll make little changes or change some, you know, even change the instrument or add or take or delete a few notes or whatever.
It's good to know how it's orchestrated, and then on a rehearsal, and then you can go, oh, I'm playing with this instrument.
Yeah.
And then you can adjust some things so that it's more musical.
If I could add something to that, it's interesting to note at this point that this is one of the main differences between the work that we're doing and, say, working in a traditional symphony orchestra, where the music that you're playing, I mean, it's repertoire. You know you're going to play this piece weeks, even months ahead. And it's maybe something you're very familiar with. But when we work together, the music's never been played before, and it's never been, you know, performed anywhere. It's actually, the music is just coming off from the copyists. They've just copied the music and handed it to you. So you haven't seen it. And so when you hear it for the first time, then you make up your mind, okay, there's a lot of decisions to make, you know, a lot of things that could be changed. So it's malleable. And if you have a good relationship with the composer and they trust you, a lot of us have worked for composers many times, so they know us, and so we can suggest things and say, let's try this or that, and they're comfortable with us. So, so that makes the music something that's not concrete. And when I first started working, I was very like, you know, exactly what was on the page is what I was going to play. And then, you know, from working with these guys and other guys, I just learned that it's not always so concrete like that. It's not like playing in a regular orchestra where it's exactly what's on the page. It's more sometimes interpretive. And they want you to do that because they know that you can do something that's a little better than what they've written.
And to go back to your question about how many takes we might have, a lot of times the orchestra will run something down before they actually record it. The percussionists, because we're playing different combinations of instruments on every take, a lot of times we're moving things around. Each player is like, okay, whoever's in, you know, the percussion leader that day gets to say, okay, you play this, you play that. And so we're moving instruments around while the orchestra is doing their read down. then it's time to record it. We're reading it for the first time. A lot of times that happens. You know,
Definitely.
So,
One other thing that I would like to call, because my experience, it was a little different that the experience that they had. You know, they were doing movies, and I came from doing sessions of albums stuff where it's totally a different environment. They give you more time for you to be whatever creative. But one of the things, and this is for everybody, especially for younger generations that might be coming to do this in a little time. These are 4 or 5 things that you really acquire by doing these recordings. There is a click track, there is a conductor, there is the orchestra, there is the other percussionist parts, you know. So you have at least those 4 things, and you're reading the music. So it's 5 things that you really have to be aware of. That's what I learned. I said, wait a second. The click, the band, the orchestra, the musicians, the players, the music, the interpretation, you know, all of that at once is, if you jump there, right there, like a boom, you're gonna start to do that, it takes a minute. It's not really, it's not like that.
Not like normal chess.
No,
More like
you know,
three-dimensional chess.
So be aware of that. You know, I know they went through all of that.
Yeah, very true.
Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the technology today makes it possible for you to sometimes see the music a little earlier than right when you're going to record. Of course, you can see the music on the computer, but when I first started working, this is back when music was hand copied, back in the Stone Age when there were horse and buggy. They actually wrote the music by hand, and so you didn't see anything until you got to the studio. And then, even if you wanted to see it, they would put a stack of music on the table, and it would be like this tall. So you don't know if there's something in there that you need to look at. There's just no time to look through all of that because you've got to set up all your instruments and get ready for the date to start. So when I first started working, like it would be like a Warner Brothers animation thing with a lot of fast xylophone stuff, and that really was like kind of my baptism of fire to like work in the studios, because I was like, this is crazy because I'm going to have to sight read this for the first time while they're recording, you know. And so that was definitely something that was terrifying, but I knew that I had to learn to deal with that and be used to that to be able to work in the studios.
I was doing a score one time, and they rehearsed. It was a big band score, and they rehearsed. They ran through this one cue several times. Okay, let's record it. There's no percussion. I said, I have no percussion part, right? Yeah, no percussion on this. So I'm relaxing, and during the 8 clicks count off for, when they started actually recording, the copyist runs in and throws the music on in front of the vibes, like during the count off. And that was the take.
Wow.
So it happens.
Yeah, pretty common. I just wanted to add for people watching this that the clicks are not steady. They're all different tempos. That they make a retard, they make a cellorandos. It jumps into like a bar of 5/8 at a different tempo, then back to a slower 4/4. So don't think like the click is going to be that easy to just lock into. Yeah. It's moving all the time, more so than ever now, I think.
And sometimes, a lot of times, the strings or the orchestra as a unit isn't quite with the click.
Definitely.
You can't be the only right person in the room. If you're with the click, because trying to be the right person, you're wrong, because you got to be with the orchestra too.
Exactly.
And it is so important to have really good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though, as Brian is saying, because you might be playing a little behind the click to play with the a different section, and It's it's not. Oh, you used to have a click. It's so easy. No, it's not like that at all.
And the reason why the click is all over the place is because it's following. It has to be at a certain place at a certain time with the movie.
Yeah, they're matching
picture.
timings on the film, and so they're trying to hit a certain thing where they've had a meeting with the director and they're deciding, I want it to start here, I want this caught here, and when this person comes in and things like that.
Yeah, well, I've noticed over the years that the more and more as the click becomes the rule of law in the studios, sometimes the music can seem a little bit like metronomic at times, because we have to play it perfectly. Like, a lot of composers get hung up on everything sounding quantized or perfectly together, but then it depends on the composer. Like, we are currently working on, Williams is doing his last Star Wars, and he doesn't like the click at all. In fact, he says he hates click. So he said, please take it out, because I think that it sounds better when I can just conduct and you follow me. So that's an example of him wanting to just watch the picture and catch it himself, and then we just follow his
And he'll
baton.
say things like, let's get to know each other. Wow, use your ears.
Yeah, so it's two different worlds, with and without.
So in his conducting, he would speed you up or slow you down or take you.
He's
to
very good at that, his conducting.
Yeah, and each take is vastly different, because he might, take one bar slowly one take, and the next time, rush through that bar to catch the next thing. And it's actually very musical to do that without click, but it's just a different thing than using click.
So it all adds up to needing a wide skill set.
Yes, and there is
Musically
and the composer leader is setting the tone for each session, and you want to be able to read the room and do what he's doing. Or I like to find out who the engineer is, all of those things. What kind of mic do they have on this instrument, and just try to be as helpful as I can to get the sound on tape, not tape anymore, but get it recorded.
And how long is a session when you go in for a movie date?
It all depends, but it could
Minimum
be
is 3 hours.
3 hours, and then sometimes all day would be 6 hours with an hour for lunch, and then could be a few days of that.
So here's a question, Terry. They go in to do a movie date for 3 or 6 hours and record an hour or more's worth of music sometimes, whatever it takes.
If there was that much music, it would probably be a few days.
I think there's a law of how much they can record in so much time.
I think it's 5 minutes an hour.
So how does a rock band take 6 months to do a CD?
That's a
where
budget.
are we missing here?
That's a big budget.
Yeah.